the Opupco Studios in Oklahoma City. You're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell, and we're brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. Go online right now and order your pizza at papajohns.com. Time for We Pick 'em, Barry. All football all the time, but let's start with a little NFL action. Mid-afternoon game. Kansas City goes to Denver. 3:30 kick. Who you got in this one?
Well, it's an interesting game in Oklahoma. These are bordered franchises. Now, we don't have much of a border with Missouri, and we don't have much of a border with Colorado, but we got a little bit. So we'll claim them, especially the Broncos.
Well, we'll claim them if the Cowboys are the other option for us. Good grief.
The Broncos, riding high, looked great against the Colts. Kansas City laid one of the biggest eggs of opening week with that home loss to Tennessee. So Peyton Manning looks in his prime, and for all we know, he still is. So I'll take Denver.
Yeah, I'm going Denver in this one too. And you mentioned Kansas City and that egg that they laid at home in the season opener. You know, you got the stadium packed, Chiefs fans going crazy after they make the playoffs a year ago, and they just looked abysmal. It might not be the worst loss in opening week because, I mean, Miami beat the Patriots. There were some bad losses.
Chicago, the Bears, at home to the Bills.
But Denver wins this one. If Kansas City goes to Denver and wins, big time shocker right there. All right, Barry, let's get to the college game. Georgia goes to South Carolina. It's a 2:30 kick on Saturday. Hey, we all get to watch before the games involving the locals. Who you got in this one?
I've got Georgia. South Carolina, I think, is showing that they're just not as good as we thought. I mean, they get rolled by A&M. Kenny Hill really made mincemeat out of the Gamecocks. And then South Carolina really struggles at home with East Carolina, which is a solid mid-major. But I think South Carolina's just fallen some, and I think Georgia's the cream of the SEC East. And if Georgia wins this game on Saturday, I think you can pencil in the Bulldogs for the SEC title game.
Well, I like Georgia in this one as well. And you know what? Georgia's a team that I haven't really looked at the rest of their schedule. Maybe you have, but I could see them making a little run at that college football playoff. I think that they've got enough talent. They've sort of been in the hunt over the last couple years, so they've got some experience and some history, so they know what being close looks like, but they also know the pain of not quite getting there. So I think they've got some guys that may be motivated, and I just think they're better than South Carolina. I know it's a road game, but I think they win, and I think they win by at least a touchdown.
Georgia's got Auburn. That's the big crossover game.
Okay, there you go. All right, Barry, what about this game? Down in Arlington, it's one of those neutral site games. UCLA comes to Jerry World to play Texas. Who you got in this one?
Well, I've got UCLA, but let me make a radical statement. This season, Texas has played better football than UCLA has.
Wow.
These two teams collectively have played 4 games. There's been one good game played, and that was Texas against North Texas. Texas did a nice job, dominated the Mean Green. UCLA is 2-0 with 2 bad performances.
Yep.
Lucky to get out of Virginia with a win, 3 defensive touchdowns to win by 7, and then really messed around all day last week at the Rose Bowl with Memphis, beat Memphis and Justin Fuente by 7. UCLA has not played well, but I'm still picking the Bruins because Texas was so bad against UCLA. That offense, without David Ash not doing much at all, I think it's going to be a bad year for the Horns.
Yeah, I'm going UCLA in this one as well. And, I'm the same way. I haven't been really impressed with the Bruins. I thought that, they would be at least a team that you could look at and say, man, maybe they got a chance to upend, the Oregon, Stanford, USC train that's out in the Pac-12, maybe making a run towards the playoff. But, Brett Hundley hasn't been overly impressive. I just am way less impressed with the Texas defense. I think Hundley could give them problems. I'm not so sure Tyrone Swoops is the problem for the Texas offense. I just don't think they got playmakers at playmaker positions, which we've seen it happening, and yet it's still shocking to see that at running back, at wide receiver, at defensive back, places where you think they're going to have athletes who can make a big difference at Texas, they just don't, and I think UCLA gets them because of that. All right, Barry, what about up in Stillwater? UTSA comes to take on the Cowboys. That's a 6 o'clock kick on Saturday night. Who you got in this one?
Well, I got the Cowboys, but Texas-San Antonio is going to be a solid test. I mean, this is a team that routed Houston and took Arizona to the wire. So UTSA is a legitimate football team. It's a mid-major that you got to be careful of. I can see the Cowboys messing around with this team the way they messed around with Troy. Remember, was it 2010 or 2011? Troy was not great that year, but was a solid mid-major and took OSU to the wire in Stillwater. I can see this game, but I think Oklahoma State's team speed is so good that I think that at some point they'll overwhelm the Roadrunners, get a win there at home, solid win. Probably not a blowout.
Yeah, I'm going with OSU in this one as well. And yeah, UTSA, I mean, OSU got up big quickly last year down in San Antonio against the Roadrunners and really just kind of ran away from the game. But I don't think that that's going to be as easily done this year. UTSA brings back a ton of experience. Those close calls, and that big win in the opener, I think that they're a much improved team. And I think this is something to keep an eye on. UTSA, in only its fourth season as a program, is starting to make a little push to be a team that nobody wants any business with in the non-conference. You know, it's in East Carolina, Boise State. Those teams had to start kind of building towards that reputation as, you know, they were building, and I think UTSA is trying to do that. OSU's got to keep that in mind, that they're coming in here motivated, because once they get into conference play, they're not going to make the headlines. But a win against OSU at OSU could be huge to their program and to the building that they're trying to do down there. All right, Barry, what about the marquee game, not only in state, but nationally this week? That's Tennessee at OU. It's a primetime game, national television, 7 o'clock on Saturday night. Who are you taking in this one?
Well, I got the Sooners, and I got the Sooners big. I think 35-10. I just think Tennessee's still in that rebuilding mode. For all the splendor of Tennessee's tradition, the Vols have not had a winning season since 2009, 4 straight losing years. Rebuilding to some degree this year, both offense and defensive lines wiped out. I think Butch Jones is doing a good job. I think the talent is increasing, but this is not a vintage Tennessee team. I think the Sooners win easily.
Yeah, I do too. I'm going with OU in this one. I think if this was maybe a little bit later in the year, maybe Tennessee's got its legs under a little bit more, but it's not. It's week 3, and I think that's advantage OU. I think they've got more experience, more talent. I think that pays off. But this is going to be a game where you can start to maybe make some evaluations of things. It's really hard to do that against teams you're so much better than in the first 2 weeks, but even though Tennessee's young up front on defense, that defensive front's still an SEC-sized defense, so you're going to get a chance to see how does the OU offensive line block against them, how do those fullbacks, tight ends, those sorts of things, how do they handle that, what do they do for Trevor Knight, and I think we may get to see Trevor Knight run around a little bit more than we have in the first 2 weeks. They've sort of not wanted to put him out there, maybe risk injury. I think he may have a little bit more options in the run game. It'll be fun to see what he does if that is the case. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.